Welcome back. You are watching the press preview, a first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. It's time to see what's making the headlines with journalist and author Janelle Aldred and political commentator Gawain Towler. So let's see what's on some of those front pages for you now. Well, the Daily Express leads with outrage over bonus payouts at the UK Border Force, as record figures show 110,000 asylum claims were made in just 1 year. While the Observer features a full-page picture from today's asylum protests. The Sun's front page features an exclusive on Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner, who's bought a third home near Brighton for more than £700,000. The Daily Mail is also leading on the same story, highlighting questions over Rayner's purchase amid her department's crackdown on second homeowners. The Telegraph warns of a 1970s-style debt crisis under Rachel Reeves, with fears Britain could face an IMF bailout. And the Times leads with Kemi Badenoch speaking about the racism she's faced as Tory leader, saying some claim she only rose to the top because she's black. The Mirror leads with an exclusive interview with EastEnders star Cheryl Ferguson, who reveals she had a stroke and had to learn to walk again. And the Sunday Star has an interview with I'm a Celebrity star Dean McCullough, who says he's living in fear after receiving death threats online. We're joined now by journalist and author Janelle Aldred and political commentator Gawain Towler. Welcome to you both. Let us start with the Sunday Express front page and their headline, Border Farce, outrage at bonus payouts. And these are the sums paid to top civil servants in their Home Office. Gawain, you take us into the story first.
Some of the salaries seem to be eye-popping, more than the Prime Minister and so on and so forth. And at one point, they said, oh, he's a good chap, because he does ask the French every now and then. It doesn't work, but he does at least ask. Being given these salaries, and all the rest seems to be over the top. But
this is Martin Hewitt, Labour's Border Security Commander.
But what I don't understand is what they're getting bonuses for. If they're a civil servant, you're on a civil service grade, you get that wages. What's the bonus? It's not as if they're in the private sector. They're not delivering. Clearly they're not delivering because the figures are going in the wrong direction. Why are they getting bonuses? In the civil service, you take the salary, you do the work because it is a good thing to do for the country, and then if you're really good and successful, you get a gong at the end of it. You don't get a bonus as well as the gong. These people end up with a KCMG or something of this sort. That's what they get. That is your bonus. Recognition, knighthoods come left, right and centre, and yet they get a financial bonus as well for what looks like they're failing.
Well, some received a £15,000 bonus. We don't know what the bonus
What's it for?
As you say,
maybe,
but we haven't got the detail.
GIE quotas in the department. What is the bonus for? Because it's clearly not for cutting down on the number of asylum seekers.
Janelle?
Well, I think it's easy to pinpoint DEI as the reason why they got their bonuses. But the thing is,
it could be anything.
You know, I was interested to find out they got bonuses, because I must confess that's something that I don't really genuinely think about with the civil service in terms of bonuses, because it's not like a for-profit business where you make extra profit, so you get a bit of cream off the top, which is what you would expect. We are paying a certain amount of tax, a certain amount of money. We're told there's not a lot of money and there's no magic money tree. So it does seem interesting. It seems that it's come through as part of the appraisal process. I think they would benefit, as we all would, from a bit more information about how those bonuses are assessed. As taxpayers, of course, we want to see that our money is well spent. And if someone's done an amazing job and they've saved the country loads of money, then yes, OK, I can maybe think about a bonus, but it's not something I think about in terms of the civil service.
But if you go into the civil service, you get the KCMG, you get the OBE, you get the knighthood for that.
But we all need to live on...
It's not standard.
If you succeed, if you're good at your job, you don't get a financial bonus, you get a reward.
The pay rises, I'm not so... The pay rises in terms of, in relation to their salary, is actually quite small. You know, in this country, the average wage is £37,000 and a half, close to. So some of these people are receiving between £170,000 to £175,000. So a £5,000 bonus is easy to kind of understand in relation to that amount of pay. But I do think that the bonuses...
Except it's a bonus.
Well, everyone needs to get a pay rise, because everyone gets a pay rise.
You get a pay rise,
every year.
Everyone then get a bonus on top of that.
A bonus on top does seem, without information, interesting, especially as their particular roles are around asylum And that is something that is not yet, as some people would say, under control or happening in the way that we think
But could
it should be.
individuals be doing a very good job, specifically within their area, although outwardly the department might be failing?
Are we suggesting that if they hadn't been so brilliant, the situation would be far, far worse?
I think we should take the lead from...
Well, we don't know about individual situations,
Well, yes.
do we? We don't know what
But if you have the
are doing
person,
in their particular roles.
And they're talking about Martin Hewitt, Border Security Commander, the boss, the guy on the biggest salary. If there's something we don't know about where he's brilliant and succeeding, maybe we should be told, because on the face of it, he's not. We're doubling the numbers of people coming across the channel. The asylum bill is going through the roof, 7 billion, so on per annum. If this is a measure of his great success, I dread to think what failure would look like.
Well, I think what you're both saying is that more transparency would be helpful. Let's move on to the Observer and the Epping hotel crisis, which is very much in the news. And this piece here suggesting that 2 customers in an Epping cafe were on the verge of a fist fight. Such is the strength of feeling. Gawain.
Yeah, I read this piece, and it's a very different piece from most of the pieces coming out of Epping and from the people I know who've been at these protests and have been involved in these protests. I mean, it does, almost every person witness feels like that they've been picked for a BBC panel. They're almost universally either the worst sort of hard right, I'm not a racist, but they've got slitty eyes. That's one quote in there. And the rest are literally the sort of people you'd find on a BBC panel. I think the Observer have definitely gone looking for evidence to write the story they want to write.
Or have they just found people and got their views?
And yet, as I say, pretty much everybody else who's been reporting, left and right, has been reporting, I think, slightly differently. This looks like a BBC production. It has that feel. It comes to me as a very one-sided piece. We're looking for people who think everything that's going on down there is awful. We're looking for racists. We're looking for this sort, rather than just a broad speech. And this fight does feel very, very odd indeed. But of course there will be people like that, but I don't think it's representative of the majority at all.
I mean, I take the view that this is a story talking about kind of the story in and amongst the story. And the story is the bricks and the mortar of the protests that we see happening and the different things. This story is about actually what does this do to communities? And I'm actually quite interested in this story as to hearing a different side that isn't just someone outside, like waving a flag, seeming really angry and cross. Actually, they're talking to people who live there and say, what are these protests doing? How is it making people... And I don't want to use the soft word feel, because that does feel a bit soft, but for want of a better word, you know, they're talking about communities being split and families being divided, because there are people on both sides of this debate in Epping. Mm-hmm. And I think if you look, and if you talk about the BBC panel, I mean, I don't think it reads like that, but to me it reads like we actually want to hear from different voices here, not just the voices that we see on TV at the protest. We want to hear from other people who have another point of view about the town that they live, which is just as valid as the other view about how other people feel. I wouldn't
disagree that there are other points of view. I would say, though, in many ways, these protests are bringing communities together. Various people who don't normally talk, the broader community in Epping, people are actually coming together because they are equally upset about a certain thing. Now, they might not have known each other. They've got a lot of people from that area, from Epping, coming together, and that actually brings people together.
Well, when I look at this kind of coming together that I'm watching on the screen, I must say I'm not sure that's the kind of coming together that I want to see in my local town. I don't want to see scenes like this where I live. Most people don't want to see scenes like this where they live. So But
the reason why is because many of the people in Epping have not been listened to for an awfully long time, and they've been ignored and ignored and ignored, and they have come together to protest. So that is a build. And what we see is quite often, and the particular vision we're seeing now on the screen, was when people from outside arrived on both sides.
Well, they're the
Antifa people came from
together
outside.
with the other ones, aren't they? And this is what we don't want to see.
I'm talking about the Epping community that has been there day after day after day, as opposed to the set-piece moments where people are coming in, both on the right and on the left, coming in basically for a ruck. The people who are out there, just like in the Britannia Hotel on the Isle of Dogs, it was women coming together, most who didn't know each other, but now, and the pink ladies who were not violent, the congas down the street, this sort of stuff, which I don't think is a protest you've got a problem with. That sort of stuff where you need police forces, yeah, I'm with you.
But it's not really been about bringing people together. It's showing the divisions. We've seen people protesting in Liverpool. We've seen arrests. That's not a cohesive community, is it?
It does bring people... well, the country is split to a certain extent. There's no denying that. There are arguments and differences of opinion. But what I've seen is, in many of these places, people who are normally hidden behind their front doors. I was talking to somebody this morning who won't let her 15-year-old daughter out, and she hates herself for it, but she is frightened, and they're planning to leave London. A lot of people are hiding and are stuck in their homes, and coming out like this is actually bringing people together.
Well,
it's actually bringing a community together. Now,
really,
a community together against something, yes.
In a very strong way. Listen, if every single asylum seeker left all the hotels, we would still have crime in this country. There would still be violent crime, there would still be sexual crime, there would still be every kind of nefarious crime in the sun. So I guess, is what she's saying is that, OK, if all the asylum seekers left, there were still loads of criminals in the country, now I'm going to let my child out because they look like me? I think this is a very, very thin argument.
It is. Things have changed, and there is a mood of menace in certain parts of the town that has caused a lot of people a great deal of concern. And it is far. Whilst there's always been crime, there's always been problems. There does seem it has been exacerbated recently. Now, that's possibly there's more information, there's more knowledge. When I was growing up, I'm sure there was not maybe just as much, but there was these things, but we didn't notice.
But is all the crime coming from...
No, certainly not. Of course not.
OK.
No, that would be absurd. But proportionally, there are question marks over sexual attacks. There really are. The data does suggest that people from certain areas...
I would really love to know, where is this data? Where is this data? Because we hear about data, we hear about stories. We've heard about this one arrest. Yeah. But where's the rest of the data? This menace that we talk about, this kind of language, when we talk about bringing people together, it's very obvious, it's very easy to say, him over there, that person, because I can visibly see that they are,
there's been
not from here, not like us. No, I have listened. But, at the end of the day, there are other people in Epping who do feel differently. There are other people in London, Bristol, and where all these things are, which is why there are two sides to this argument. And again, it comes down to, let's be clear on the facts, let's be clear on the data, and let's not muddle up anecdotal stories, which are terrible, with real data, real facts, real case studies, because that's actually what's needed. Because what's happening now is not bringing people together. It's making our country a very dangerous place, and no one's safer because of it.
Very quickly, the last...
Well, I think the way that the government, those chaps who've just been given bonuses, have been distributing people around the country without informing locals is an issue, and it's an issue that is a perfectly reasonable thing for people to protest against. Because it's the lack of... We were talking about transparency earlier. It's the transparency thing.
There is definitely something to be said for people being housed in areas and the community not being consulted. I will agree with you on that one.
It's the transparency
But what
thing.
I will disagree with you on is that the way to solve it is by people pitching up outside where they live and waving flags and basically carrying on in a threatening manner to people who have not moved themselves there. The government's moved them there. Let's talk to the government about the issue.
Janelle, you've had the last word. That was the last word, although I was giving it to you, Gwen.
Fine.
Thank you both for the moment. We're going to take a break. Coming up is a breast cancer drug that could extend the lives of women being withheld from the NHS. We'll be discussing that story on the front of the Times when we come back. Do stay with us.
I'm James Matthews and I'm Sky's US correspondent, based here in Washington, D.C. Do you fear a fourth indictment? Does your government owe an apology to the British home children?
Great to see you.
Does your government owe them an apology? The fact that they were intercepted, does that indicate a military weakness on the part of Iran?
No.
Free, wherever you get your news. There's no doubting the strength of this hurricane as it roars through. You can feel a devastating power. It had been a difficult night in a deadly storm.
Bang, bang. You can hear it hitting the windows.
Our houses are okay.
It's depressing.
As bad as all of this is, it could have been much worse. Today, this land they call sacred is at the heart of America's electric car revolution.
To me, it's a sacred ground.
The white gold rush is a race that Biden doesn't want to lose. I've covered some of the biggest stories in the world. Donald Trump, 45th President of the United States, it would appear is about to learn his fate.
Escort coming out!
San Quentin houses America's largest death row. They rarely allow cameras onto the condemned block.
James Matthews, Sky News. I want to be treated equally like everyone else.
It's one step closer to getting out, to getting off death row.
Sky News. Get the full story first. Mr. Trump, James Matthews from Sky News.
Hey, James.
Are you diminished by claims that you're a racist?
Question?
Mr. Musk, has your ignorance and ego cost Ukrainian lives? Vladimir Putin calls you outstanding. What do you call him, sir?
He's from Sky News. He's from Sky News. He's entitled to ask me questions.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos, analysis up at 6%. Podcasts, watching us live.
Joins us live.
All in one place. And all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
I'm David Blevins, and I'm Sky's senior Ireland correspondent. I've spent 30 years reporting the journey from conflict to peace. The end of the political stalemate, the start of a new chapter for Northern Ireland. Catholics and Protestants now facing the same threat.
If we both contract COVID-19, religion's nothing.
Sky News, the full story first.
Welcome back. You are watching the press preview. Still with me, journalist and author Janelle Aldred and the political commentator Gawain Towler. Let us have a look at the Mail front page and this story regarding the Deputy Prime Minister. Rayner shells out £800,000 for her third home, third underlined. Why is this a story, Janelle?
I must confess, I'm not 100% sure, because the third home is underlined because she doesn't really have three homes. She has one home. She has a Grace and Favour home as in her role as Deputy Prime Minister, and she has bought a second home. So they're calling this her third home, I think, hence the underline. And so I'm actually not 100% sure why we would begrudge someone buying a second home should they have the means to. I think what they're trying to point to is that Labour are turning the screws on second home owners, pricing locals out of housing. They're saying that there's more claims around her council tax arrangements. Was a story about 18 months ago. So that's why they're thinking this is a story. But actually, I think this is a very thin attack on the Labour Party. And I actually think there's not loads of legs on this one.
Gawain, do you agree?
I have to say, this sort of story fills me with tedium. She's a successful woman on a reasonable salary, and she's buying a holiday home.
That's the British dream now.
Why am I so upset? And it seems to me this is an exclusive in the Mail. It's also an exclusive in the Sun. And it's obviously a thing that's been dug up and discovered by the Tory research team because it's in both papers. The Tories very early in the story is being quoted. And if that's the best they've got, there's an awful lot of stuff about this government you should be having a go at. But a successful woman buying a second home doesn't seem to me... because she's going to have to pay the taxes that her government's been bringing in. She's going to have to pay these things. In fact, it might be good for her to actually feel that pain. But I just... this is the same sort of level as Labour having a go at Farage as a supporter of Jimmy Savile. It's the same sort of school ground stuff. It doesn't improve our politics. And you know what? Why shouldn't a successful woman buy a second home?
I suppose that the news line or the angle that they're going on is because her department is wanting
Yes,
crack
which she
down
will
on-
have to
on
pay for
second
herself
home
if she's
owners.
bought a second home. She will have to suffer these pains, and maybe that's good for her to learn how other people are hurting because of her policies.
You
maybe
and
it's a good
Janelle
thing.
are in agreement.
We're in agreement on
I know, but it's a case of it's just this
common sense prevails on this one.
This
I
is the
would
sort
say.
of trite rubbish that becomes our political debate.
Right, let's move to the Times and this story. A drug firm withholds breast cancer medicine amid price row. A breast cancer drug that could extend the lives of hundreds of women is being withheld from the NHS in an escalation of a pricing row with the pharmaceutical industry. This is quite alarming, actually, as a story, Janelle, do you not think?
I do think so, and I think it comes again down to how is the NHS costed, who gets what medicines. I mean, we haven't heard the term postcode lottery for a long time when it comes to the NHS, but that is something to kind of think about. But in this case, we know that Wes Streeting walked away from talks with the industry about the rate companies pay in medicines clawback tax. So we know that there's a bit of a storm coming about the urgency around medicines, how they're paid for. Trump has also waded in, as he seems to be in everything these days, because he's threatening to lower prices for drugs in the US, which is causing pharmaceutical companies to then raise prices at the places where he feels they have more favourable, or the people have more favourable rates than Americans. But the Gilead's general manager for the UK, because it is a Gilead drug, says the UK has the ingredients to be a world leader, but it's impossible not to see a decline taking place right in front of our eyes. He calls the action unprecedented decision because basically there is not an acceptable and appropriate profit. And I think when it comes to health, I think in this country, with the way we think about our healthcare, the terms appropriate profit and a drug that could save lives, and 500 women would have been eligible for the trial, and that's 500 families, 500 communities. It's more than just those 500 women. So yes, it is concerning to think there's a drug that we can't get because we can't make a deal on the appropriate amount of profit on the drug.
Gwen, people reading this story, the first thing will be that, you know, lives will not be saved because of profit, because of money.
Well, yeah. I mean, yes, of course, but at the same time, who's going to create the next drug if they don't have the profits to be able to reinvest, if it's not worth their while to do so? The NHS would be far, far better if we stopped inventing stuff. Because when we invent stuff, it's expensive. It just is. 500 women,
we're not gonna
each
cure
at
things.
£45,000 for a 5-month process. This becomes highly expensive for the NHS. The NHS is under a great deal of pressure anyhow. So this business about undervaluing, overpaying, it becomes very moot. But I agree with you. What do we mean by appropriate profit? What do we mean by that? Is that making enough profit to reinvest and still pay something to the shareholders, or is it a massive, great bonus for the shareholders? This we can't tell from this article. I'm a bit concerned about those two words.
Question, Gawain and Janelle. Thank you very much for the moment. We'll see you in the 11 o'clock hour. Let's take a look at the weather for you now.
Breathtaking views with clear skies ahead. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Well, Britain looks mostly dry and increasingly warm through the bank holiday, but Northern Ireland in the far west will turn wet later on Monday. There'll be a mostly fine start tomorrow, but it'll be chilly where skies were clear overnight, especially in the northeast and southwest. There'll be just a little patchy showery rain in the cloudy west. The morning will stay generally dry with sunny spells, best over central, southern and eastern parts.
Breathtaking views with clear skies ahead. Qatar Airways sponsors the weather.
Fire, shouts the commander. There's a dash to safety.
We've now got to wait inside the shelter to see if there is incoming.
I'm Deborah Hames, Sky Security and Defence Editor. Should Russia's war with Ukraine escalate significantly, pilots like these could be called upon to go into combat for real.